And we're live. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Wyatt, the co-founder and CEO of Female Founder Collective. We are a platform to empower, educate, and connect female founders from around the globe. We actually have a private community called 10th House, which is amazing, where we do this on a sort of hyper-focused basis where we help you find access to funding, to find access to all of the resources you need, and most importantly, find access to each other, and also create regular educational opportunities. I'm very excited to be here today with a friend and an incredible icon within the industry, Kendra Bracken-Ferguson from BrainTrust and also BrainTrust Founder Studio. Excuse me. But I want to go right in because she has so much knowledge to share with all of you, and just start asking questions. So let's start off with your background. You are the absolute definition of a multi-hyphenate, which I love that term. And I'm thinking likely because, well, you're multi-hyphenate background. So would love for you to share how your past has led to your future with all of the people listening in right now.
Great. Well, Ali, thank you so much for having me. I am a huge fan of yours and Female Founder Collective. I am a member of 10th House. It's been an amazing community. So it's funny because I like to say that I have the mindset of an entrepreneur and an entrepreneur. And I was one of those rare people when I was in 6th grade. I was watching TV and the president was giving a speech and someone walked up and handed him a piece of paper. And I said to my mom, "Oh my gosh, who's that?" And she's like, "That's the press secretary." And I said at that moment, that's what I want to do. I want to do PR. And I was very fortunate that I did an internship at Fleischman Hillard. I ended up working at Fleischman, one of the largest PR agencies, is my first job, and was really on this amazing path. I was like, I want to be the youngest VP. I want to do all these things. And what I didn't realize when I was at Fleischman, I had the opportunity to help build the digital practice group, and literally sitting there like in the early 2000s saying like, we should work with MySpace. I was working with Black Planet and Mahinte and Asia Avenue, like early days pre-Facebook. And at that moment, it was like an aha moment, but I didn't know it until later. And so I worked so hard to help build the group. I traveled all over Europe and Hong Kong and Korea and Canada doing these boot camps. And because it was so early days, we were on message boards and forums and all these really, platforms that we think about now. And it was before Facebook removed its .edu. So that was such an integral part of my career. Fast forward, I was recruited by Ralph Lauren to be the first director of digital media. Once again, sitting in a company, creating something new, not really realizing that I was in this kind of cross between an entrepreneur and an entrepreneur. And Ralph Lauren was such an amazing experience because I literally was reporting into the head of corporate communications, David Lauren, the head of advertising, the head of e-com, and also talking to the CFO about how much revenue we were making from social back in the day. So it really grounded me in understanding the business side as well as the fun side. Fast forward to that, I met Karen Rabinovitz and we launched Digital Brand Architects. And we started talking about this in 2009, 2010. And we were really the first agency, one of the first agencies to represent bloggers as talent. And that's when I really kind of put my big girl pants on, stepped out on faith and became an entrepreneur. And it was so exciting, so challenging. We brought on our third partner, Raina Pachansky, who runs the business today, and who really did a fantastic job of really moving our vision forward. And we raised money. As many of you know, the company sold. And I remember sitting in my office and thinking like, what do I want to do? What have I learned? And it's an important lesson as entrepreneurs, as we create things, to know when it's okay to leave something that you've created and something that you believe in. And I went to my friend, Catherine Finney. I called her and she came over and she was like, it's okay to leave something if it's not working for you. And I sat in my office and I said, what have I learned? Like, what have I learned? And it was, I love being around smart people and people that I trust, and hence the name BrainTrust. And that was me starting BrainTrust, really getting back to my roots of working with brands, less talent, Although ironically, Halle Berry was my first, one of my first clients in BrainTrust, but it really did serve me well. And so in my long-winded question, or to answer your question, the experience at BrainTrust was fascinating. We ended up being acquired by CAA. I bought the company back, which was really interesting dynamic experience.
Wow. You bought
Yeah,
the company back from CAA.
it was the whole thing. So what happened was CAA created a joint venture with Global Brands Group. And I was super excited because the goal wasn't to necessarily execute social media for talent. It was to build brands with talent. And so our caveat was that we would go into the joint venture, CAA Global Brands Group, and we would help grow talent-led brands through their licensing business. So it's funny when we think about business and intentionality, which I very much believe in divine timing and intentionality. And so I do believe we all had the best intention coming in, but there were so many unknowns. Whenever you have two massive global companies coming together to create a joint venture and you bring in another organization, there's always learning. So I took that as a great learning, but I also realized it wasn't necessarily for me and my team long term. And with everything we do, we have to learn from it. So once again, sitting and thinking like, what do I believe in? What do I learn? And over time, and it's funny because we were doing all of this pre-COVID. And then, of course, COVID came and our business shifted. So much of our revenue was through events at the Brain Trust. And so we ended up shifting, going full into brand development with talent. And at the same time, I was still, working with Halle. The agency was still working with Halle, and we partnered with her. We actually announced it in one of our lives with Female Founder Collective, but the launch of Respin, her health and wellness platform. And it was interesting because at the same time, we were also working with Super Dope Q, another talent on Black Ink Crew, to launch his hair color line called Hair Dope, which is also in market. And then I also invested in Press and Curl Bar, which is a salon by Micah Brown in downtown LA. And so between my experience at DBA, my experience working across the board, launching brands, it just was so clear that no matter who you are, where you are, launching a business is really hard. And as a Black founder, we lack more access to networks, to mentorship, education, and of course, capital. And so as I sat there and started thinking about it, I also host a podcast called Business of the Beat, where I really focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion with business leaders and entrepreneurs. And all these founders just kept asking the same questions. And that was when I said, okay, how do we provide a solution? How do we solve? And that's what led us to BrainTrust Founders Studio.
Amazing. I mean, just what a myriad of experiences. I want to back up and talk a little bit more about you bringing on Halle Berry as your first client, right? I think there's so much to be learned from that for these founders who are starting out and maybe don't have connections. Like, were you already connected to her? So that's one question. And sort of further to that question, you pivoted, right? And you went from experiences, which a lot of our founders are restaurant owners, or they were in experiential businesses, a lot of things that had IRL implications. Can you talk a little bit about those two things and that process? Because I think there's so much to be learned from that.
Absolutely. And it is interesting. I always am a firm believer that you have to pray and prepare. So it's all about preparedness so that whenever God answers your prayers, you're ready to go. And it's interesting because I met Halle through DBA. So CAA had actually come to DBA and said, like, we need support with social media for our talent. And I immediately was like, oh, let's figure this out. I went on maternity leave, came back, and my partners really felt like Halle was more in my lane than theirs, and which is fine. In any type of talent situation, different people gravitate towards, other people. And so I'll never forget, we had a meeting at Halle's and talked about it. And I came on board, and BrainTrust came on board to really help her with her social. And so it was really a moment of stepping out. When you're in a business and you have co-founders, because I've had companies where I have co-founders and where I haven't, and you have a difference of opinions, there comes a moment where you have to say, I believe in my opinion, and I'm going to follow my opinion, even if my co-founders don't. And that was really kind of what happened. And I'm so glad that I did that. And it was hard, but the relationship with Hallie and the growth of BrainTrust, it was such a catalyst. And it is a privilege. It's a privilege to be able to say, I'm starting a company and I have clients, but I also worked really hard and I positioned myself to be in a place where there was trust from other organizations, from the talent to say, like, I believe in you to do this and you have a track record of it. And so it ended up working really well. And then taking that experience with Hallie, that's how I met a different team at CAA, because through DBA, we had been working with CAA, Creative Artist Agency. But it was through that I then had the opportunity to work with Drew Barrymore to launch Dear Drew. We also worked with Kelly Ripa to launch her home line at Macy's. And so navigating all of those opportunities. And then we also, Blushington was also one of our first clients, the makeup bar that's in Dallas, New York, and LA. And 7 years later, I'm on their advisory board. So it really does speak to understanding opportunity, risk. Sometimes there's adversity whenever you have partners, but then you all have to come together with the common goal of good. And then in terms of pivoting, so, we all had to do this. And it was this moment as a business owner where we were looking at the revenue and all of the events started shutting down. So about 70% of our revenue came from events, BeautyCon, Essence Fest. We were the events agency for Sally Beauty. So we were doing 13, 14 events a year just for them alone. And we were also doing social media, which was always a core, influencer marketing. And I'm on the board of the Caton Children's Museum. And literally the CEO said, I need you to meet my brother. He's in Israel. He has this amazing idea. And once again, we did. We took the call, we took the meeting, and we started partnering with them and said, let's figure out brand development. And the other thing that really supported us was our PPP loan. Like Elizabeth Horton, who is our finance manager, she's been with me since DBA. She's been part of all of my businesses. We just buckled down and we're like, we need to do something to keep going. But that pivot was it came fast. We had to move quickly. As a founder and CEO, I had to make a decision. Not all of the decisions I made during COVID were the right ones. We had some wins, we had some losses, but we couldn't stay stagnant or we wouldn't be here today with our new business initiative with Founders Studio.
And I want to talk about Founders Studio. Before we do, I think we have a lot of service-oriented businesses that are part of our community. And a big question everyone always has, especially those that are just starting out, is how do you package and price your services? Like, what ultimately guided you? You offer such a wide range of things, but I'm sure at the beginning that wasn't necessarily the case. So would love to hear from you. What did that process look like for you? How did you start to sort of package things and find what was the best sort of ROI, if you will, for you and your particular business that you were building?
My gosh, Allie, it's so good. It is. And I have to say, this also goes into BrainTrust, having the right brains around me to control it, because I love the work. So I'm like doing the work and it's like, whoa, like we're a business. We have to reach profitability. We have to charge. And I have an amazing head of our agency, Stephanie Dreyer. And we have so much more discipline now. But the beauty coming out of COVID was that there's no room to diddle daddle with rates and fees because the livelihood of our team was at stake. So what we've done, and we actually just increased our pricing, which we really kind of talk to other agency owners. Like having a network of people who also own agencies is helpful to just kind of say, like, where are you between the 5, the 10, the 15? When can you charge 35? And how do you share that? And we just kind of did across with a few of our close other founders, looked at our rates, looked at our billable. I come out of Fleishman Hillard and Omnicom, so I understood this notion of billable rates. But when you're a small agency, it's really hard to compete with the big guns. And what we're experiencing now, the big agencies are throwing so much around in terms of teams and resources and benefits. And so we've had to take a look at all of our services. We actually went service by service. We then created a utilization tracker. Stephanie did. I will not take credit for that. Stephanie created a utilization tracker. And then we really started using Clocktify to track our time. Now, when I first started the company coming out of Fleischman, I was like, I don't do billable hours. Oh, you use it too?
No, I don't. I've never heard of it, but it sounds like
so
a fantastic resource. So everybody, Clocktify.
Clocktify is amazing because what was happening is, everyone works at a different speed. And I know that I work really quickly, and we needed to get a sense using Clocktify, how much time were we spending by client? And then I'm going in the weeds here, and then we would take that. And then when you put that into a utilization tracker, it helped us see just at the core, how much time are we spending? What does that equate to hourly? And then we also have to factor in time. Like, people forget that sending an email, reading an email, thinking about what the answer is, all of that is servicing our clients. It's not just when we get on the phone or when we present a recap report, and we have to account for that time because it's brain space, it's brain energy. That's really what they're paying us for. And so when we think about the package, we start there. And then we've also, we have to add on the tools that we need. If you're running 100-person influencer program for a client, if you're running a social media campaign, like, you need tracking software, you need tools. Some of that is the cost of business, and some of that should be applied to your clients. So we have now taken, how long is it taking you against an hourly rate? We put that into our utilization tracker. We add in incremental resources and tools, which are what we call hard cost or out-of-pocket cost. And then we wrap that into what the package is. And it's an amazing process that we continue to iterate, especially now. I kind of liken it to the restaurant industry in LA. When you go to a restaurant, there's like a COVID tax on there. So we've also started looking at what is that and just continuing to reiterate. Also having a great finance person, because we have to match up. Like, we've grown up a lot. So now when we look at our P&L or when we look at our budget, we also look at the capacity for our team to drive more business and to drive more revenue. And sometimes that means that even if we want a client, it's not time to hire. It's time to reorg, move people around so that we can fill that capacity versus burdening ourselves with the new hire for a client that may not pan out, because to your point, we're service-based. I hope that was helpful. I know I was getting...
that was extraordinary. A lot of times you get very untactical sort of answers to that. And that was incredibly tactical, which is what we always try to provide for our founders. I do have a question, though, about the services, right? Like, how did you hone in on, it's almost like product market fit if you have a product business, right? Like, how did you figure out what was that initial service, or was it that you had inbound interest in you providing that service, and so you just then needed to price it?
So it's a mix of both. As the founder, I kind of centered myself on what do I know really well as the foundation. And so my career, social media, brand building, events, we did so many New York Fashion Weeks and the like. And so I really started there, and I had to break down social media, right? Because social media and digital marketing, they're sometimes interchangeable. There's a lot of confusion. So social media for us was really about, how do we create a brand story and tell it through digital and the most modern forms of communication. So that may be TikTok, it may be LinkedIn, it may be Instagram, whatever that is, it may be the brand's website. So when you deconstruct that, that means that we are copywriters. That means that we're photographers. That means that we're community managers in terms of updating. That means that we are reporters. We are looking at all of the metrics and we're analyzing them. So we had to really deconstruct these big terms in our industry and say, now tactically, what is that service? And that was important because when you think about something like running a brand's community management, you're not sitting at the brand all day, and generally you're working on multiple clients. So we really had to hone in on what are the key messages that are going to resonate with people that as consumers we want to hear. And we always start with an audit process to get that answer, because we can't always rely on the brand to tell us what they think. We need hard data. So that takes time. Writing the copy strategizing takes time. You need a strategist who understands branding and marketing to make sure that the caption really fits. Then you're posting, and then you're monitoring, and then you're commenting. So we had to take that whole notion and then wrap pricing around it based upon the time spent, based upon the brand, based upon the number of followers. One of the things that I learned at DBA was when we were working with clients, we were setting our rates based upon channels that existed right then. And we quickly found, because when we started our first company, there was no Pinterest, there was no YouTube, all these things didn't exist. And then when they came up, we were still stuck on our rate. So now we've said to our clients, when we think about social media, it's for platforms that exist now, and then 2 more platforms that may exist in the future, and then we renegotiate with you. So part of our jobs in pricing and packaging is like future forward. Things are moving so fast. We're now talking about, we have a client in the NFT space. How do you charge an NFT client? How do you go into Web3? So part of this, here I am now, let me package, and then future. And then the last part about understanding our services was the team of people. I don't do SEO and paid advertising. I've done paid advertising on social early in my career. I don't know all of it now, but we have an amazing paid social person. And we found that strategically, if we're going to manage community management in your social channels, we need to also be managing the paid part of it. With the algorithms and everything that's happening, you can't organically grow a brand at the rate that brands want. So bringing in a social media expert and digital advertising person to really help that doesn't mean that we offer the full suite of digital marketing. It means that we had to really look at our services, what made sense for us to get to the outcome. So that was, again, I'm trying to balance, but that's how we did it.
No, I love it. It's so specific, but in the best of ways. So thank you for giving something super actionable that people can employ in their own businesses. Next question, because I want to get on to Founder Studio, because this is something that we believe so much in as well. Can you talk a bit about what Founder Studio is, the various levels that you have, and how founders can get involved and what benefits they might see there?
Absolutely. And you and I are kindred spirits in community building and the importance of community. And it was really this moment of me feeling bad really all the time. And I found myself apologizing. I'm sorry I missed this meeting. I'm sorry I'm late. I'm sorry, da 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 da. And it was to the founders who, at the end of the day, are the holy grail of everything I believe in and what I stand for. And it was because I wanted to help. But as one person, I couldn't answer every DM and every this about your business and what do you do? And I started just talking to so many people, like, how do we build this? How do we do this? And also my lived experience as a Black founder and my heart, my passion in the beauty and wellness industry. And so through that, we said, let's create BrainTrust Founders Studio as a platform where we can provide mentorship, education, community, and capital. We got to those pillars based upon the research. Those are the number one things that Black founders lack in terms of access, but what they need in terms of building their business. So we were very much centered there. And then we also wanted to make sure we could include everyone. And so at the advice of JP Morgan, who is one of our largest partners, we opened up our start tier, which is for founders who are just building their businesses, as a free tier. And then our grow tier for our founders they have a product in market. They know who their consumer is. They may be, 10,000 in revenue. They may be up to 5 million in revenue, but we know that there's a specific piece that we can help them with to accelerate and move them into our accelerate tier, which is really the tier where founders are profitable. They are primed and ready for a raise. They are, over 1 million, 5 million in revenue, but where we're really bringing in the coaching and we're focused on capital so that we can invest. The other pillar of this was very much, I'm dipping my foray into venture, but especially as a Black woman, but we wanted to be able to invest in our founders. Like we keep hearing, over mentored, but the reality is that founders are saying, I need capital, but we need to make sure that they can put that capital to work and that they're ready for capital and that they understand what capital they need. Is it debt equity? Is it a loan?
Here.
Right. And so by doing the mentorship, the education, we have our stack of agency services to help them, hiring, HR, finance, legal, retail, PR, marketing, all these things so that your business will be ready. And the other component is retail. Retail is huge for us in terms of beauty and wellness, understanding retail, working with our retailers. The 15% pledge is amazing to start the conversation. We're now executing on that to make sure that as our founders are preparing their businesses for capital, for going into retail, that we are looking at sustainability. It is not okay for a founder to get into retail and come out 6 months later with the business who can't sustain itself. So how do we make sure that we are preparing founders, we're supporting founders, we're giving them resources, and that we are building sustainable brands of the future? And we are focused on Black identifying founders, at least one co-founder, Black identifying, but Black beauty and wellness founders across the diaspora of beauty and wellness.
Super smart to be focused too, to start off so that you can have specialties, just like you did with your agency when you launched it. So I love what you're doing. Super big supporter of it, obviously. Can you you've talked about goals in the past in some of the articles that I've read on launching Founder Studio. You said that they're really key to a founder's success and also to the platform success. Can you talk about some of those goals and how those work? And then I'm going to wrap up with one more question for you.
Absolutely. So goals are very important. It was a key for me that we had verifiable, tangible results. And in order to do that, we have to partner with our founders to make sure that our goals as a platform, which for us, we want to create economic opportunities for our founders. We want to provide differentiated capital sources. We want to give them new pathways for growth. So we're doing a 22-city mentorship program with JP Morgan. With Afterpay, we're doing this amazing Black History Month program where you can, at the end of your purchase, top up to donate to BrainTrust Founders Studio. But more than that, they're highlighting our founders on the homepage and their ads, like giving them love, giving them an opportunity to shine. We just did our Clear pitch. Clearco's a partner, so we awarded $75K in grant to our winner yesterday, and we have more programs like that coming up. So our goals as a studio are big. We want to onboard and graduate over 1,000 founders. We want to invest in 100. And then for the founders themselves, we've partnered with an organization who is helping us on goal setting. So when founders come in, sometimes you think you know what your goal is, but your goal may be, I want to be $1 billion exit. I want to raise $10 million. We're trying to do what we call sprints. Like, let's set a goal that's realistic now so that we can celebrate that. And then we can create our next big goal. And that may be, I need to hire a social media manager. We're working with the founder on hiring a PR agency. I need a new manufacturing company. I need distribution. So we go through this series. It's a process of questions and answers. We analyze their businesses. And then we basically, like a script, are like, here's a goal that we think we can accomplish in 4 to 6 months. Let's continue to build on that. And, I think you experience this too. Like, we want to provide everything, but we also need founders to meet us. We can set goals. We can give you the platform, but we really want to make sure founders feel empowered to receive and to take advantage and still be founders. I think, what we're finding is that founders are running businesses. They're getting pulled in multiple directions. So as much as we can have platforms like Female Founder Collective and ours to give them exactly what they need, I think that's the beauty of all of this.
Exactly what they need. Yes. But you do need them to meet you as well. One last thing before we wrap, and that's, I always like to get your favorite piece of advice that you've gotten in your career that sort of served as your philosophy as you go out and execute and build all these businesses.
So I have two, but I'll make them short. So I live by the motto Carpe Diem, seize the day. My biggest rewards in life have been just seizing the day and moving forward. Living forward is what I like to say, and being prepared and ready for everything that comes. Like, sometimes we hold ourselves back and there's never going to be a perfect moment. But if we can seize the day every day, we can wake up and be in gratitude, then it gives us that path. And the other thing that I've really been thinking about is leaving room for my blind spots. I pray every day, to have a hedge of protection around me, but to keep my eyes open so that I can see who's here for me, who's supporting. And then we all have blind spots. We're not perfect. There's always going to be something that we've missed or something that we wish we had done. And if we can leave room for our blind spots and we can give grace to ourselves, then I think that's really the only way to live. And this notion of self-actualization, everyone is talking about self-care. And I'm like, we have to have self-actualization to even know when we need self-care, what self-care looks like. And to have these moments of going outside is self-care. And we have to have enough self-actualization to know when it's time to move away from our desk, get up, walk outside, or take a 5-minute nap, or take a deep breath. And it doesn't have to be this thing, but if we can self-actualize what we need to show up to be successful for ourselves and for our teams, I think that that's the most important thing. So carpe diem, seize the day, leave room for your blind spots, and really find moments of self-actualization to move you forward.
Amazing. So clear. I love those. I also believe in carpe diem and blind spots. This is awesome. We're so appreciative for having you. Thank you for being a member. Thank you for making all the contributions that you make to society as a whole and to the founders that very much need you.
Thank you.
Such a pleasure, as always.
Appreciate it.
Bye, everyone.